Good to go.
Thanks, Eric, very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. We will call to order this special meeting of the Lawrence County Board of Elections. Today is Thursday, April 11, 2024. A couple of housekeeping items. We would ask that if you have a cell phone, any type of electronic communication device, if you please put it on vibrate or silent. We would appreciate that courtesy. I will note that the meeting today was appropriately advertised in accordance with the Sunshine Law. And with that, I think we've covered what we need to cover in terms of calling the meeting to order. Oh, yes, we are live streaming this meeting, and it is also being recorded as well. We always start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please rise. Commissioner Kennedy, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Chris, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Sanada,
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
Commissioner Vogler.
Here, we do have a quorum. I do want to note that county code, which is the state laws that govern how counties are run, stipulates that each county have a board of elections and the three commissioners serve as the members of that board. That's why the three of us are up front here today. We always set aside time both at this point as well as prior to adjournment for public comment. We would welcome your comments. We would ask that they be related to election board matters. Solicitor Madore, do we have some flexibility? Do the comments have to be strictly on the items on the agenda, or can they be a little bit beyond that as long as they pertain to the election office?
They could be beyond what we're doing today.
As far as it's with the election office?
The election office or the election.
Or the election. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Madore. So with that, again, we'll have two opportunities for public comment. You're welcome to speak both times. You're welcome to speak one of the two times, or if you're just here to observe, that's equally fine. We ask that if you can try to limit your time to about 5 minutes or so, we would appreciate that courtesy. So let me open it up. If you do have a comment, I'll certainly call on you if you can state your name for the record, and we'll hear what you have to say. Anybody at this point? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, once again, we will open this back up in a few moments when we get to the through our business and have another opportunity for public comment. Next, the minutes. We do have the minutes of the last meeting of the election board, which was February 23. If anybody wishes to have a copy of those minutes, Mrs. Vanasco could secure those for you. Or if at the end of the meeting I have mine, I'll be happy to share them with you. But we do have the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on February 23 of this year. Gentlemen, I'll give you some time to look the minutes over, and then if you're so willing, I could entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes from February 23rd, 2024.
I'll second that motion.
Gentlemen, thank you both. Do either of you have any comments or concerns? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sanada,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to the election director's report, I was remiss in not giving my two colleagues an opportunity for any opening comments that they might have. Commissioner Sanada, anything at this time?
No, not really. I think that, this is important today. Get straightened out, especially on the Union Township voting precinct. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Kennedy, any comments?
Sound good, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Germaini, Tim Germaini is our director of the Voter Services Office, and we've set aside some time for you to give us an update, if you would, please.
Sure, I have a couple things. First, I'd like to go over the voter stats. I always like to go over that. I have not certified yet even though registration closed on the 8th, we still have a couple post-dated applications that need to be done, but I will be certifying the voter registration totals here this week. As of right now, we have 55,923 total registered voters. That's all odd parties, everything like that. Right now, we have Republicans at 28,142. Democrats, registered Democrats in the county, 20,866. Mind you, those are the two parties that will participate in the primary. So that altogether, we're going to have 49,008 participating voters for the primary. But like I said, I still have a few more, nothing that would move the numbers in any significant way, but I will certify those results or the voter registration here this week. That way I can close it
Can
down.
I pose a quick question as it relates to the voter registration? And you mentioned the deadline was April 8th.
Yes.
If someone, is it based on the postmark? So if someone mailed it at the post office on April 8th and the postmark was April 8th and you get it, let's say today or tomorrow, can it still be
Yes.
entered into, so it is based upon the postmark?
That is at least, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there might be a few.
Might be, but it doesn't look like it. So
Okay,
everything that came in is in.
okay, thank you.
Yes. So we have that going on. I have, I'll just mention that there's no affiliation totals are, that's the third largest party in the county is 4,852. But that, they won't be participating at the primary. We are going to talk about a resolution, I believe, with the mail-in ballots in the date range. But I'll go, with that being said, I'm gonna go over the apps that were requested for mail-in absentee ballots. As of this morning, when I ran this report, there were 4,817 requests for mail-in ballots. We started mailing those out on April 1st. There was a little holdup because of the court order of question of a certain individual for the Senate. If he was to be taken off the ballot, he was removed, and then that's when we released the ballots to be voted on. But as of right now, the return that I've got is 1,065. So I expect a lot more ballots to be coming in through the mail or at the counter. So we have that. The last day for you to apply for a mail-in or absentee ballot is April 16th, and the office will be open till 5 o'clock.
And I assume you've made arrangements with the sheriff's office?
Oh, yeah.
For the security to stay an extra hour?
Yeah, Barry's always on top.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna be talking about another polling spot change. That will give me a total of 10 for this election that I had to change. I know it's late in the game for this polling spot change up in Union Township, but what can I do? So we're gonna switch that into the municipal building they're telling me just for this election. So, that change will affect 789 voters that I have to send notices out to. I put another notice in the paper of the change of the polling spots, and I'm going to put another ad in the paper that just has the particular areas that have been changed. Do you mind if I go over what was changed?
Please.
In the second ward, 3rd district, that is going to be at the Glenmore Presbyterian Church.
This in the city.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, yes. And also in the city, 2nd ward, 4th district, that will be also at Glenmore. So there'll be 2 areas in Glenmore. The 2nd ward, 5th district, we put at First Church of God. And also in the city, Fourth Ward, the second district and third district that used to be at St. Joe's, we moved that to Dawn Services on Harrison Street. And Mahoney Town, Seventh Ward, First District, that used to be at St. Vincent or St. Lucie, that's changed to go to St. Marguerite's Hall. That's right on Liberty Street. And we will have signs out front for all of these changes. I posted changes around the area as well. Now in the borough, since South Newcastle is doing that merge thing with Shenango, they sold the municipal building that used to be in South Newcastle for the polling area. They've asked me to change it to the fire hall. So South Newcastle Borough will be at the South Newcastle Fire Hall, which is on West Fires Avenue, 104 West Fires Avenue. That's where everybody in South Newcastle will vote. A reminder in Neshannock Township, the 2 polling spots at the Hutchinson Center are going to remain where they were in November, which is Neshannock 7 is going to be at the Meadows Clubhouse on 3509 Meadowview Boulevard, and Neshannock 8 will be at the Y Zone at 428 Eleanor Drive. So those will remain until I find out what goes on with Hutchinson Center. Shenango Township, the fire hall has turned into an office building more than the fire hall, so they can't accommodate us. So Shenango 2 and 3 will be at the new Shenango Sports Complex right off of Elwood Road. Can't miss that. It's a big building. But there'll be signs there as well. And Pulaski, let's skip that. Pulaski 1. That used to be at the fire hall. Pulaski 1 will now go to the River Valley Complex, 320 Shenango Street in Pulaski. Very nice complex, much more accommodating than it was for the fire hall.
And us old timers would know that's the old Pulaski Elementary School.
Yes, correct, yes. And then with that, we're gonna talk about changing the Union Township 2 that used to be at the fire hall, which is being renovated, that we will move it to the municipal building. So there will be 2 areas in Union there at the municipal building on 1910 Municipal Drive, if the board accepts it. And also a reminder, in Union 3 and 4, both of those will be at Washington Union Alliance Church, West Washington Street.
Tim, aside from the Union 2 that we'll be talking about here shortly, the other ones that you just referenced, have all the required written notices been mailed out to the voters in those precincts?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the only one mailing you'll still have to do, assuming we approve this, is to the folks at Union 2.
That's correct.
Everybody else has received their notification,
Yes, yeah.
or
but
should have received.
Should have received it, and I'm trying my best to remind and get the word out of these changes. That's a lot of changes. I've never seen so many changes. 15 years I've been here, so I'm doing whatever I can to get the word out. That's about all I got. Counselor, if you want to talk.
So before we get to new business,
Yes.
let me see if my colleagues have any questions on your report. Commissioner Kennedy? Mr. Sanada? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda then would be, we have 2 resolutions for consideration. The first, what number would this one be, Chris?
10.
Number 10, Resolution 10 for the Board of Elections. And I would ask Solicitor Medora, and not to inconvenience you, Mr. Medora, but would you be kind enough so that the microphone picks it up? You wouldn't mind coming up front. Thank you for doing that. We have a proposed resolution. Let me read it into the record if you don't mind, and then between Jason and Tim, you gentlemen can give us some of the background over and above what's in the resolution. The proposed resolution reads, whereas on March 27, 2024, the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit provided a precedential decision, not presidential, precedential. Did I pronounce that right?
I did.
Precedential decision in case number 23-3166. Whereas said decision concluded that the materiality provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 applied to state elections through the Voting Rights Act of 1965 does not compel the counting of undated/misdated ballots that violate Pennsylvania's outer envelope date requirement. And whereas to avoid confusion, the election board desires to set the date range in compliance with the prior court decisions as follows. March 4 of 2024, I'm assuming I should say up to and including Election Day. Is that I know it's not stated that way, but I'm assuming the interpretation would be up to and including Election Day?
Yes.
April 23, 2024. Thank you. Now therefore be it resolved that all mail-in/absentee ballots dated on the outer envelope between March 4 of 2024 through April 23, 2024 shall be considered in compliance. All other aspects of absentee ballot compliance must still be adhered, including no markings on the secrecy envelope and signing the outer envelope. This is the proposed resolution. You wish to defer to Jason, or would you like to make any comments before we ask the solicitor?
I'll refer to council.
Thank you. Mr. Medora.
Thank you. This resolution is not a requirement pursuant to the court case. This is simply to provide additional clarification to voters that are using the mail-in or absentee ballot format. There is anybody that's voted by absentee or mail-in ballot knows that the outer envelope has a signature line and a date line. The assumption is, and well, I'll go back for a second and say the election code states that mail-in ballots will be signed and dated. However, the confusion always remained in what is considered dated. The assumption has always been, the common sense would tell you it's either the date next to your signature is either the date you sign it or the date you send in the ballot. However, there is no specific provision within the elections code which states what that date should refer to. Meaning, for example, somebody may put their birth date next to their signature and technically the ballot is dated. However, pursuant to voters and conversations that we've had, that's really not the proper way to date and sign the mail-in envelope. So this resolution would provide clarification to the voters and also, ease of interpretation for the election board to simply say that mail-in ballots on the outer envelope signed and dated must be dated between this date range in order to be in compliance. And this date range was considered by multiple counties to be inclusive of any period of time that mail-in ballots can be taken. I believe that March 4th, 2024 is the first date that UMOVA ballots can be sent on the Uniform Military and Overseas Voter Act requirements. And then obviously April 23rd, 2024 is the election date. So like I said, it's not a legal requirement for us to provide this resolution. It's purely for clarification purposes.
Well, let me begin, first of all, to thank you for the research you've done on this and for the recommendation that you're bringing forward. Let me ask this one question, if either of you are able to address it. What procedure then should Tim's office follow if the document comes back signed but with no date? How are those handled if there is no date on the line that requires a date?
If Tim's office receives signed in the undated ballot pursuant to past practice of voters, they will attempt to contact the voter and let them know that their ballot is not going to be considered unless they cure it. And if they are unable to contact that voter, or if the voter is unwilling to take any further action, then the ballot would not be considered valid and it would not be counted.
Thank you for that, Jason. Mr. Kennedy, do you have questions for either Tim or Solicitor Medora?
I have one question. It says April 23rd, 2024. What happens if someone walks up to that ballot box and puts one in at 11:59? And voting ended at 8 o'clock. Is that still?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we don't, wait, at 8 o'clock, the ballot box is removed.
Well, this particular one I won't remove, but I'll have a cover over it.
Right.
Sealed.
Right, so it can't be used anymore.
Yeah.
So at 8 o'clock was done?
Yeah, it's done, yeah.
That's a good question too. Do you have other questions?
No, that was the only question I had.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Sanada?
Jason, just a question. Now, we're putting the dates of March 4th through April 23rd.
Correct.
Now, fall election, do we have to do this resolution again?
We do.
So
We would want to do this resolution again.
every election to clarify it.
We would, yeah, that would probably be preferential at this point. We don't know if this disposition that we're relying upon was a Third Circuit Court of Appeals decision. Part of this case was remanded back to the district court in order to determine an equal protection argument. So we're not 100% sure if this case is fully done. We also are not sure if this case is going to be appealed to the US Supreme Court. So we're still operating on an election by election basis with this, but at least for this primary, and if everything stays the same for the general, I would recommend that we do a similar type of vote range.
Okay, I appreciate the information.
No problem.
Thank you, Chris. Well, it's certainly possible then that based on future potential court rulings, and depending upon what those rulings are, that we may be meeting again and making further modifications to this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I would say that at least for this primary, this would be the last modification. There's nothing that would be able to happen between now and the primary at this point.
Thank you for that, Jason, very much. Do you have anything else to
I know,
add?
he was very clear on that.
Do the two of you then recommend to this board that we take action, and do you recommend a favorable vote? Is that your suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I do.
Thank you both. Gentlemen, unless you have any other questions, a motion then would be in order for us to consider proposed resolution 10.
I move that we consider resolution 10.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you both, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Counselor, you feel we've covered this sufficiently?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll take a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sanada?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes?
Motion carries.
Thank you. Proposed resolution 11, Mr. Germaini has spoken about this, and let me read it, and then we'll get a chance to have some further discussion. Whereas in the Township of Union, District 2, the polling place was located at the Union Township Fire Department, 304 South Scotland Lane, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Whereas the Union Township Fire Department is currently under construction and cannot be used as a polling place. Therefore, be it resolved by the Lawrence County Board of Elections that the polling place for the 2nd District of Union Township shall be moved from the Union Township Fire Department to the Union Township Municipal Building located at 1910 Municipal Drive, Newcastle, PA. Notice of this change has been duly completed per Election Code Statute 25 PS 2726. Do you have more to add? I know you touched on it briefly, but do you have more details to share with us on this proposed change?
Just like I said, if this goes through, today I will mail out everybody's new voter cards with a reminder that their polling spot has changed. And I will have signs up and around the area to notify voters that it has changed as well. And I'm going to put an ad in the paper. So, yeah, that's about it.
One thing I want to give you credit for, you notified each of us, I believe separately, that when you were made aware by the fire department of the fact that their work that's being done in their building would not be completed in time for us to vote there, you then communicated with Union Township officials. You went to the municipal building, you looked at the meeting room, and you made the determination that there is enough room, that part of the room can be utilized for Union One, which currently goes there,
Yes,
and part of the room can be utilized for Union Two.
Yeah.
And we do have situations like this in other locations around the county, particularly, first example I think of is Scott Township, where there are two precincts that vote in the same building. So that, assuming that's all accurate, I think a thank you is in order to the Union Township supervisors and their staff for their willingness to work with us and accommodate us.
Yeah.
The other nice thing is you can see these two buildings. They're that close to one another. You can almost walk between the two buildings. And hopefully, if the fire department concludes its rehabilitation of their building, do you anticipate that possibly in the fall, the voters in Union Two may go back to the fire department?
I do. They just, how construction goes.
Yep.
They fell a little behind and they were nice enough to at least tell me that it wasn't gonna be adequate. So, yes,
And again, thanks for all the work you've done
thank
to
you,
get us to this point.
sure.
Since you live in Union Township, I'll call on you next.
Okay. Tim, just a question. When you send the mail out, okay, are you telling this is for this election? Or,
Actually, it says until further notice that we will let you know, so.
okay, I just want to clarify that because you don't want to make people think, oh, this is a new permanent change.
I haven't stated it at the end that until further notice, so, who knows what might happen that.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, I concur with Chairman Vogler. Yeah, we thank the township supervisors and the staff up there because this happened so quickly and we were really much in a bind. And
Yeah.
it was done as quickly as possible. What day was it? Monday or Tuesday? We found out. Today's Thursday. So, no, we want to get this thing resolved because it's, so important.
Right,
Hopefully that at least we know that if the worst scenario comes, we'll have it there in the fall.
Yeah.
So we don't have to deal with this, especially in the fall election. Thank you, Tim.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Sonata. Do you mind if I jump in with a real quick question as a follow-up to Chris's? If we approach November and the fire department comes back and says, hey, we're able to accommodate you one more time, and I'm kind of looking at Jason as well, am I to assume then that the board would need to once again convene and pass a similar resolution that moves Union 2 back to the fire hall? And that being said, if that's the case, then we would once again have to notify the voters in that precinct?
You're exactly correct.
Okay, thank you for that. And I apologize for jumping ahead of you.
No
So,
problem.
Mr. Kennedy?
No, just thanks to Tim and his staff for getting everything done. And Union Township, them guys been good. We've seen them a couple of times, Chris and I, this past week. Just thank them guys for what they do in the fire department for letting us use it. But you will probably have a couple more going back. Shannon, Scott Hutchison Center.
Yeah,
Well, I think they're hoping to have that done by the fall too.
yeah, that's what they're telling me, so.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher.
Yes, it is, and I know that in November there will be more changes. I know they're gonna sell Croton Church. It's on Croton Avenue, that's, where's that at? Croton United Methodist Church, that's third ward, first district, so that's gonna change. I know that's gonna change. But as of right now, it's fine, but yeah, there'll be more.
Well, again, we appreciate all the hard work you and your staff have put into finding these alternative locations.
Thank
And you're right, it's a bit of a challenge for that to happen, but you've made it work. One of the big factors is finding a facility that meets the ADA requirements, the Disabilities Act requirements, or at least allows us to make modifications
Yeah.
so that it meets those requirements. That's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, but sometimes you just can't modify it, so.
Gentlemen, any other, counselor, have we overlooked anything?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Tim, anything else before we move forward on this?
No, I think we covered that pretty good.
And Dan and Chris, unless you have any other questions, could I then have a motion for proposed resolution 11?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 11.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. Any other last questions? Hearing none, well, Chris, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Sanada?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes?
Motion carries.
Thank you. Once again, our appreciation to Tim, Susan, and Solicitor Madore for all of the work they put into these two items. We come down to public comment. Let me open it up if anybody has a comment they wish to make at this time.
I have a question about some comments made during the discussion on the mail-in ballot. I don't remember who said this, but so the voter envelope without dates can be cured. What's the last date that they could be cured then?
It's a good question. Do either of you gentlemen know that answer?
Well, the last date for a mail-in ballot to be valid would be election day, so I assume it would have to be election day, because anything other than that, after that would only be considered a provisional ballot, and we don't accept provisional ballots for this type of curation.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, a mail-in ballot can be delivered to Tim's office up until 8 p.m.?
Yes.
Correct.
I appreciate that question, Mrs. Lon. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, another question I had then, so if it's dated on 4/23, but then doesn't come in until after the election, what happens there?
I won't accept it.
Okay, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure,
no, yeah,
because
that's,
you could write on the envelope
yes,
the
you
date
certainly
of it, but
could,
it could show up later in the mail, because the mail is
absolutely. And
discussed last week.
with that being said, I contact the mail, the post office, they get whatever ballots they have in their possession, because the mail comes in the morning. So he calls me, the postmaster, they'll come, they usually come about 7:30 on election day, give me whatever they have in their possession,
AM or PM?
PM.
7:30 PM?
Yeah, right before close of election. And then, of course, we have a timestamp in our office that all ballots get timestamped. So there's a date and a time stamp on the ballot. Even if the ballot comes in late, I still timestamp it and, set it aside and segregate it. But at least it's proof that, yes, I got this ballot after a date. And a time.
If I could also add something, that was one of the reasons why we put in the resolution that just because you're satisfying the date range requirement of this mail-in balloting, it does not mean that you have the ability to violate any other aspect of mail-in voting, which, we just put a couple examples, but there are several, but that would include you can't mark a secrecy envelope. You must use a secrecy envelope. You must still provide the ballot on time. You must sign the ballot. So that date isn't a cure-all for every other aspect of the mail-in ballot.
Thank you for noting that. Anything else, Mrs. Hahn? Mrs. Ryan?
I just have a quick question, because you said that the mail-in ballots were mailed out on the 1st of April, but that they could be dated March 4th through April 23rd. So I understand that there's 50 days of voting, with that, but and I don't have such an issue of this election, but going forward, don't we want that date to be when the first available date of having the
I have a
ballots?
reasonable, because of you mail the ballots. Their military overseas had to go out
Okay.
prior, so that falls into that date. Am I right in saying?
You're right.
Counselor?
Yeah, that
Okay.
date was set because of the UMO.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why, that's
Okay.
why.
What do you refer to those ballots as?
UMOVA,
Thank you.
they're for
What does
overseas.
that stand for, if you can remember?
Uniform Military Overseas Voters Act.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question because it reminded me of that fact, and I was wondering that, so thank you, Lynn. Other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience have a public comment at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Just one more question. I just, because it didn't come up today, I just wanted to make sure that the other people on the board were aware that we met last week and that we had shared some information on our review and analysis of the voter roll,
Yes.
and you have that, okay?
I advised my two colleagues of the fact that you and some of your colleagues met with myself and Mr. Germaini and Solicitor Madore. I did make my two colleagues aware. I did provide the documents that you've shared with Mr. Germaini. He's actually started to look into some of those matters. And as we discussed, once we get past the primary, our hope is we will sit down in May with you again.
Yes, thank you.
And I appreciate that you folks understand that it can only be one of the three of us in that meeting to avoid any
Sure,
potential issue with sunshine law or along those lines. I appreciate that you know.
of course.
Yes, we will be getting back together with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I do apologize for meeting that name, but.
Oh, you were sick. That's right. You were on the,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tim was not there.
Right,
And,
yeah.
That's right. My mistake. I'm glad you're feeling. He was under the weather. Take my word for it.
But I have looked into some of those, not everything, but some of it I've looked into, and if you want, I'll talk to you about it after this.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mrs. Hahn. Mrs.
No,
Brown?
thanks, we appreciate that. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Certainly. Other public comments? Closing comments from my fellow commissioners. Mr. Kennedy. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sanada.
Yeah, just, Tim, I know we talked about this in the past, and I know we have representatives from Republican and Democratic parties here today. The list of voting precincts where they don't permit signs, do you have that? Is that,
I do not, I will have it, but I don't have it right now.
okay, I would recommend we give one to Mrs. Ryan, the one to
Absolutely.
Mr. Block.
Thank
Because
you.
I know that's been an issue why we've lost some of the voting precincts because of some of the signs and some of those issues. So we appreciate the cooperation of both chairmen and the parties because it's not getting any easier to find these voting precincts. So we want to make sure it's a peaceful election day and we all follow the rules on both sides. And I know both sides have always, from your perspective, you guys are doing your job, and we got to get word out to the candidates because sometimes some candidates don't listen to you or anybody, and that causes issues for the area. I know that's why we lost the precinct this time. So I just wanted to bring that up. We lost two because of that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Couple of housekeeping items. Unless we have to convene again for a special meeting, and if we do, we're obligated by law to give a 24-hour notice in the paper through a legal ad. And we've asked, when this board does meet as a courtesy, we've asked Mr. Germaini and his staff to contact Mrs. Ryan in her capacity as the chair of the County Republican Committee, as well as Mr. Buck in his respective position for the Democratic Committee. We phoned them to let them know. If we have to meet, we'll follow that procedure, obviously. But if nothing compels us to meet, we are planning to have a meeting of this board on Monday, April 22, which is the day before the election, at 1 p.m. I hope I have that right.
That's correct.
Good, okay, thank you. In this room, and this is kind of a tradition that we've always done, is we meet the day before the election just for any last minute matters that we may have to contemplate. Our current solicitor and prior solicitors have recommended to us that when we convene that meeting the day before the election, that we recess the meeting to the call of the chair. That way, if an emergency should arise during election day in particular, it allows us that ability to reconvene in relatively short notice. Have I stated that correctly, Counselor?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that's our plan. And so again, unless we have to meet between now and then, we will be meeting again on April 22. I should also note, courthouse will be open, obviously, on April 23, some counties actually close their courthouse except for the offices that need to remain open, such as the voter's office, the controller, the treasurer, and the sheriff, and the courts. There does have to be a judge of the Court of Common Pleas available during
Prothonotary.
Prothonotary, yeah. Some counties do that. We don't. We're open. The one thing that we do forego, the commissioners themselves normally meet on Tuesdays at 10. Traditionally, the Board of Commissioners does not meet on Election Day, and that'll be the case this year, of course, barring any emergency. Now, that all being said, let me do two things. Since we've had more discussion, once again, are there any public comments? And hearing none, once again, Mr. Kennedy, anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, and Mr. Sanada? I'm good. Thank you. Counselor and/or Tim?
That's it.
Okay. So we will adjourn at this time with the understanding that unless we need to meet sooner, that we'll be convening again on April 22. That all being said, may I please have an adjournment motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned. And then I will note that the recording is still happening until they come in to turn it off. So, thank you all so much. Debbie, I have your packet. Oh, Debbie, I'm sorry.
I know.
I know I apologize. Did you have any questions? Forgive me. I knew you were there and, okay, you're up to speed. Okay, and you have a full packet? Okay, thank you. Anybody need my packet? It's here if anybody wishes to have it.
We're good.
Mrs. Martinsky, if you'd like to have it?
Yes.